Welcome to Be a Programmer YouTube channel. Today we are going to learn about some basics of programming. So this channel is mainly focused on programmers to learn any programming language. The basic is basically to help them understand all the basics of any programming language. Before you start learning any programming language, it will be better if you learn the basics of the programming language. About history of computers, then we will see the history of programming language, and finally some basics concepts related to let's start with the history of computers. The earliest known computer is found to be the Chinese abacus. It's basically a wooden tool with two levels of beads. So basically it can help you in doing some arithmetic operations ranging from addition, subtraction, and sometimes you can do multiplication. Okay. After that, I think the Chinese abacus was used before some 2000 years back. In 1800s, uh, the first known computer, so which is basically a mechanical computer with a lot of gear setup similar to today's mechanical watches. So you will send a lot of beats and number rolls everywhere, and it also can get some inputs using punch card techniques. So it was first invented by Charles Babbage. So he's currently called as the father of the modern computers. In the beginning of 1900s, the next gen vacuum tubes is nothing but some kind of tubelet you can consider. It has anode and cathode, and additionally, it can also have a third node in between. So it is one of the oldest form of switches. So this is beginning of computer using electrical nodes. Then in the same time, after some years from generation of vacuum tubes, silicon was first developed. So using silicon, diode was developed. So diode is basically called as PN diodes or the other formatted diodes. And diodes leads to development of transistors. So transistor was developed by Bell Laboratories, and the person who were involved in developing this technology were provided Nobel Prize. So it was considered as one of the beginning of revolution of computers. In 1958, the concept of integrated circuit was first developed. So using this circuit pattern, the circuit boards which contains hundreds of transistors were started designed. So the first concept is SSI, s- simple scale integrated circuit, then medium scale integrated circuits, then it continuously went to ultra scale integrated circuits. Okay, so in 1965, so based on these integrated circuits, so Intel had developed their first known processor called 4004. So after 4004, Intel had developed their most standard processor called 8080. So it has a capacity of 60,000 operations per second, and it has 2300 transistors integrated within it. When you want to compare with this processor, so today's Intel i9, the i9 has almost 1.2 billion transistors compared to 2300 transistors, and the frequency is 4 gigahertz. So basically, when you want to convert this, it's basically 600 kilohertz. So this is the development in the hardware side. Let's move on to history of programming language. We know that computers can understand zeros and ones, so we call it as machine language. Okay, so it has been executed by the integrated circuits underlying the processor. Okay, so in 1951, the first concept of assembly language, we call it as uh, which uses assembler, is introduced. For assembly language, we usually have operational codes and operations. So each operation code will represent some operations, and the programmer has to understand this codes and they have to build their program. And this once will be after compiled by assembler, you will the final output will be an assembly machine code. So after the development of assembly language in 1957, Fortran was first developed, and in 59 COBOL was developed. So this is one of the advanced programming language during the time. Even still, many mainframe systems are running this program. So it's like once developed and it's still been used continuously. So after this, the next generation of programming languages started coming out. In 1971, C, one of the ground breakdown in programming language, was developed. Then after that, there are many languages like SQL, C++, MATLAB, Objective-C. This is used in Mac systems. Then Python in 1991 and 95 we have Java. This is one of the evergreen. So after that, in 2001, C Hash was developed, and recently in 2011, there's a language called Kotlin, which runs over Java virtual machine. Okay, it reduced many of the bottlenecks in Java and Swifted. And next in 2014, the programming language called Swift. It's an advanced version of C++. It's introduced for Mac for developing a new program. Let's go through some basic concepts of uh, programming language. The first one is compilers. Okay, so usually the high level programming languages will be compiled by a compiler. The compiler has two pieces, the front end and back end. Front end validates the syntax, it will optimize the code, throws any errors or bugs. After that, it will prepare intermediate system code and system tables. So basically, the system table maintains the variables, and intermediate code will be used for backend compiler second step. So the backend step will actually execute and build compiled code. So compiled code is nothing but equivalent to a machine code, zeros and ones. The next concept is called interpreters. The interpreters are similar to compilers. So here the high level programming language is fed into interpreter. The interpreter internally compiles and also executes the codes at the same time. It doesn't wait for compiled code to be executed separately. So that's the interpreter. So it is necessary to understand this basic concept before going into any programming language. I hope this was helpful. Please stay tuned to see further programming videos related to programming.